We are back with the K&L Sports Huddle, another episode 11. We've gotten through a lot of these, got a ton to talk about today. Obviously, the NFL schedule release, NBA playoffs, PGA Championship, Scottie getting another one. MLB, we got some cool Hall of Fame tidbits coming out of Major League Baseball. But how are we feeling today, Logan?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it was another fun week of sports. Weather was nicer, so it was kind of hard to watch golf, but I kind of caught bits and pieces of it over the weekend. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it because there's lots to talk about for sure.
Yeah, and obviously with so much to talk about, there's going to be some things that missed the cut, and we had a few other tidbits I want to run through here. Obviously, the WNBA season got underway this past week, and its two biggest stars went head to head: Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The most notable part of that game was Clark committing a flagrant foul on Angel Reese, and the subsequent scuffle that came after made some interesting storylines coming out of that game. Fever ended up, taking them pretty easily and winning to get their first one of the season underway. Clark with the triple double, but I love just the fact that this rivalry is continuing to get the ratings for the WNBA. It's not unlike Magic and Bird that catapulted the NBA back in the 80s. Kind of has that same feel. Also, over the weekend, we had the betting favorite, Journalism, at the Preakness, used a late charge at the end of that race to take the victory. Obviously, we don't get a Triple Crown winner this year with the horse that won the Kentucky Derby not going to the Preakness for one reason or another, but it was still a pretty good race there. And then another race, the Indy 500, had its first rookie since 1983 win. Robert Schwartzman ended up taking the title there at Indy 500. And then in the Major League Baseball, we do have a couple of central teams, the Twins and the Cardinals, turn their seasons around in a matter of weeks and have pretty much become relevant contenders again, which was not the case just 2-3 weeks ago. They've really had a really good month of May, and they're right back in it. But we do have some bad news out of MLB, and that is Phillies closer Jose Alvarado missing 80 games because of a PED suspension. So another one bites the dust in Major League Baseball. But were you able to catch any of those races or any of the games that happened over the weekend?
So yeah, the Cardinals are hot right now. I know they lost yesterday, but I know they took out series against the Royals. But pretty impressive stuff by St. Louis these days. For the Clark and Angel Reese game, I tuned in for a little bit of that just because it's a good rivalry, and it's basically is similar to a Bird Magic with the amount of media hype it gets, and we got a full taste of it with the flagrant foul, which I don't really believe was flagrant. I think it was just a normal foul to
It looked like it.
stop the
Just a
basket.
normal
So
foul.
yeah, but I mean, it's Bird and Magic by the amount of media it gets and the amount of attention it gets. But to me, it would be like if the media pushed a rivalry between Steph Curry and Rudy Gobert or Andre Drummond, like someone like that. They're just two completely on two opposite ends of the spectrum of talent wise, where they're both productive players, both very good players, but nowhere near each other. Clark led that team to the playoffs last year for the first time in a few years, and had a triple double. While Angel Reese had a double double, but it wasn't a very efficient one because their field goal percentage was still kind of down. So, yeah. And then the other thing you brought up, the horse racing. To me, the if your horse wins the Kentucky Derby and you do not run in the Preakness, with an exception to it's injured, or you're like the horse from 2022, Rich Strike, who had no reason to run because you did all you possibly could by upsetting everyone to win the Kentucky Derby. If you don't run, I feel like you should be banned from Churchill Downs for 2 years because you're taking away so much excitement to the Preakness race. And whenever horse racing, the three big races for that are the Derby. Derby's obviously the biggest, but the Preakness and Belmont just elevate whenever the winning horse of the Derby is in that, and when
Yeah.
it's not in there, it's just not the case, and not as many people care. So it's for me, it's a ratings issue, and to get more people to watch, you got to have the previous winner run.
Yeah, and speaking of more people watching, WNBA with Caitlin Clark, more people are watching. The teams are flying private jets, but yet a lot of fans, a lot of players that are in the league right now in the WNBA, they kind of have some animosity for her because she's so popular, and now that people are watching the league, they want to gatekeep their sport. They want to be precious about it and be like, oh, watch our sport, but on our terms, right? Because we've been watching a lot longer than you. So I don't get all the hate that comes Caitlin Clark's way. I think she's great for the league, and she's doing a lot of good for it. So, but let's get to our big topics here. We got the NFL schedule release that was last week, and there's so much to go over with I mean, there's so many games. We can't just break down every single game. But I know some of the main takeaways I had was first that, you know, these streaming services like Netflix and Amazon, YouTube, they're starting to take over. We're getting more games from them. Obviously, Netflix has, the Christmas Day slate, and then YouTube's actually getting a game week one on that Friday, I believe. And obviously, Amazon has been in the business for a while now, taking the Thursday night football, but they're stealing some of the big games from the Nance Romo CBS crew, the Burkhart Brady Fox, and Tarico Collinsworth at NBC. So I wonder if we're starting to transition from the cable networks to streaming, and that's where we're going to have to start watching from here on out.
We're definitely moving that direction, but I don't know if they're going to go fully streaming just because so many old people and and just convenience wise just don't do streaming. Like they're still with their cable or Dish or Direct TV and just get the channels there. And I mean, yeah, they could easily. I mean, they get huge money from those streaming services, but it could be bad in the long term. But yeah, we see more streaming services are picking up NFL games because the NFL is the biggest league in the world, arguably. Um, but I think the YouTube thing's good because you will get it for free, I believe.
Yeah.
You don't need YouTube TV specifically to watch it, so that's good. I remember they've done games where you need Peacock, which I don't think is a good idea because not too many people have Peacock. But I do like this YouTube one, especially for that opening Friday game. I believe Chiefs and Chargers in Brazil.
Yeah. And what do you think about like all the overseas games, all the international games? I mean, I kind of get the stuff in London. I know they're going to Dublin this year, but I don't really know what the point of going to Brazil is.
If the goal is to get an international team, I don't think it's a good idea. I honestly don't mind it if the team is promised a bye week and then next week. Like I think it's kind of cool, and it especially helps with the 17 games now, where a team is going to have, since 17 is not a number,
Yeah.
either a team from the AFC or the NFC is going to have an extra home game. So yeah, if they're, and that's always been the issues of international games. So you're going to lose a home game. A certain team's going to lose a home game because they're going to have to be declared the host for the game.
Right.
But when you already have an extra home game, I think it works out well now. Um, as for the cities, it's interesting. I know they're playing one in Spain this year, I believe, and Berlin's getting a game. So and Brazil had one last year, and they're getting another one this year. I believe Australia is in the works too for not this coming season, but next year. So I don't know. Who knows? 10 years will be one in Baghdad. You just never know.
There might be. So as we look at all the games on these schedules, we've already gotten rankings of the strength of schedule for every team, and I don't know why this bothers me, but I don't know how you can rank a strength of schedule when the basis of that ranking is last year's winning percentages. The teams are a lot different now, just a year over year. I would definitely be factoring in trades, free agency pickups, the draft, I just don't know that why it bothers me so much, but I do think the strength of schedule stuff is a little overblown, and I think we get some overreactions from that. But I did want to get into some of the toughest 4 game stretches that some teams had. To me, I think it's definitely the Dallas Cowboys. So who they'll face between weeks 12 and 15 is really it's going to be rough for them because they have to face the Eagles at home, the Chiefs at home, but then they have to go on the road and face the Lions and Vikings. This is in a 4 week span. So I don't know what some of the schedules you've seen, but that was one of the biggest takeaways I had from this one was that the Cowboys are already behind the 8 ball because of the fact that they've got Schottenheimer as their coach. They've got a quarterback coming off an Achilles, and I don't know about this season for them, man.
That and something to note about that is that the Eagles Chiefs, that's in a short week because the Chiefs game's Thanksgiving.
Both of the Super Bowl teams.
And for some reason last year they were just horrible at home, which is shocking because I feel like Jerry World provides a good home field advantage. But yeah, that's tough. It's probably the toughest. The one I found is a team that's not going to do well this year, but after the 4 game stretch they were given to begin the year, for sure is not going to do well. So the New York Giants are in the same division as the Cowboys, so they're going to play the same 2 top teams in the NFC from last year's playoffs before their games. But as for the Giants' first 4, they start off their season at the Commanders, at the Cowboys, and I know the Cowboys, you might say they're not going to be as good next year, but the Giants have just struggled mightily in Jerry World for the last several years. So,
especially against Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott has just owned the Giants. So you can chalk that one up as a loss. And then after those 2 away games to start the year, they do get 2 home games after that, but unfortunately it's the Chiefs and the Chargers. 2 Chiefs obviously coming off a Super Bowl appearance, and the Chargers being another good team out of the AFC West. So if the Giants go 1-3 in that span, you could consider that a win. 2-2 would be massive win. You might be thinking playoffs at that point, but 0-4 to me is the most likely in that, because that's the start of their season.
Yeah. And I thought another one that was pretty interesting was the Chicago Bears schedule from weeks 11 through 14. They will be going 3 out of 4 on the road. They'll be playing at Minnesota, at Philadelphia, and at Green Bay. They do get the Steelers at home, which that could be a shit show in and of itself with what their quarterback situation looks like. But I thought, having to play, obviously a couple of those teams are in their division already, so that's already a given. But to have the Eagles sandwich in there, that's going to be a tough test for a young QB and Caleb Williams and a new system under Ben Johnson. So we'll really get to see how they stack up against some really good teams.
That Eagles game is also on Black Friday, so it'll be a standalone game on a short week at Philadelphia.
What are some of the games that caught your eye? I don't know if you've seen some of the primetime games that are already scheduled for. Were there any games that really caught your eye that really jumped out to you?
I mean, yeah, lots, but there's no reason to get into all of them. I think every year,
maybe like one of the
every week the NFL delivers. I'll just start with holidays. That's what I kind of want to start with. So Thanksgiving, I think the Thanksgiving slate's awesome this year. Green Bay at Detroit. Those games, Detroit's always hosted Thanksgiving games, same with the Cowboys. But I mean, both those teams, in my opinion, are going to be on the same level just because the Lions losing their 2 coordinators. I don't really know how much that's going to affect them, and that might bring them down a little to Green Bay's level. And Green Bay might rise up a little bit too, with Jordan Love continuing to develop. And then Kansas City at Dallas, we already alluded to that, but Kansas City is a big draw for eyes, and so are the Cowboys. So I think it's a perfect Thanksgiving game. And then the night game, this is usually a hit or miss every year. I think this year it's going to be an absolute hit. It's Cincinnati at Baltimore. Assuming no one gets hurt on Cincinnati's offense, I mean, their offense is still going to be spectacular to watch on any given Sunday. And Baltimore's Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. So I think that's a great divisional game on Thanksgiving. Um, I also really like the Saturday before Christmas. That's usually a big. It's not a holiday, but you could almost consider it an NFL holiday because there's always good games on every year. And this year that we got two good division games with Green Bay at Chicago. That's arguably the best rivalry in the NFL. Chicago in late December. It's going to be cold, hopefully snowy, hopefully foul weather. Hopefully we get like a really just brutal war going on between those two. And then another divisional game, NFC Championship rematch, Philadelphia and Washington. That'll also be on December 20th as well. And then for Christmas, the NFL is kind of taking the shine away from the NBA, scheduling these Christmas games. We got a triple header that day. Dallas and Washington. Of course, Dallas gets another primetime game. But the other two games are interesting. You got Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota's an absolute wild card. I don't know how they're going to be this year with JJ McCarthy, but but we didn't think they'd be as good last year either with Sam Darnold, and look how they surpassed all of our expectations. And then Denver and Kansas City. Hopefully, Denver doesn't have a. Hopefully, Bo Nix, I would say, doesn't have a sophomore slump, and Denver's relevant at the end of the year, or else this game could be disappointing. But if it's not, if you recall, this game was the game that the Broncos had a 35-yard field goal with a chance to win at Kansas City this past year, and then it was blocked. That was when the Chiefs' devil magic was on full display in that game. But I think the holiday slate's really good this year. I don't know if you've looked at the other primetime matchups, but
Yeah, one that stuck out to me was for the Miami Dolphins. They last year, if you recall, they got the Bills late in the year, and that's never good because Dolphins being a warm weather team always struggle in those cold weather environments, and they actually get Buffalo in week 3. Don't know how Miami season is going to go, but that is a plus for their schedule. They have to travel to Buffalo early in the schedule in week 3 and not have to deal with the worst of the temperatures up there. So that stood out to me. Obviously, in week 1, we get a pretty good Sunday night football, the first Sunday night football, and that's Baltimore and Buffalo. We get Josh Allen, we get Lamar Jackson. Great matchup to get the season started for the NBC Sunday Night Football crew. Those were a couple of the games that really stood out to me. There's just so much here. I mean, I don't know whose schedule that is the worst. You could say the Giants. I've seen rankings where the Giants have the worst. I know the Bears are having a tough one, but yeah.
The Giants, you get that because they're the worst team in their division, in a hard division, so they don't have to play themselves, which lowers it a little bit for the other teams.
Yep.
And they play all the other opponents that their division does. But just a couple of quick things on the other primetime games. I think the Thursday night slate, there's some actually good ones this year. Usually that's not the case, but week 2 we start off with Washington at Green Bay. I think that's going to be a fantastic game early in the year. And then we got some good division matchups like San Francisco against the Rams. I think San Francisco is due for a bounce back year. They can never be irrelevant for too long. As long as they stay healthy, I feel like they'll still be a competitive team. You got Buffalo and Houston. That should be a Sunday night game, in my opinion. Dallas and Detroit. Those games last year was a disappointment, but 2 years ago that was the famous Dan Skipper reporting as ineligible game. So I think Thursday never has to be the best game of the week. I think some people raise their expectations like, "Oh, Thursday's terrible." It doesn't have to be. I think it has to be too competitive. It's two teams that are competitive. And I don't even mind when they put the worst teams on there because that's the only chance we sometimes get to see with them all year. Put the worst team against the worst team against each other just to see how they are. That's kind of one of my gripes this year, looking at the number of primetime games each team has. So primetime is defined by no other game is on. So this doesn't take into account if the Chiefs-Bills play that CBS evening game. Technically, that's not a primetime game because there's a couple other games going on at that time.
Right.
But most people in the country will get that game because it'll be I mean, because it'll obviously draw bigger eyes than like a West Coast Seahawks Rams game. No offense to those teams, but it just would. Um, so the Chiefs lead the way with 7. Not really a surprise. It's kind of funny when you look at their schedule compared to a bad team. Where like a bad team, all of their games are like 1:00, and then you look at the Chiefs. There's like 4 or 5 games that are a 1:00 start time, 1 Eastern. But then things get weird. Cowboys have 6 because, of course, they do. I mean, it's every year. This is one that bothers me. So, and then there's a big tie for 5, and some of these teams make sense. Detroit, number 1 seed in the NFC last year, makes sense. Philadelphia, you could argue they should have more because they're the defending champs. Washington got an exciting young quarterback. Buffalo has Josh Allen. All those make sense, but for some reason, the Dolphins and the Falcons also have 5. We're going to talk.
The Falcons one is
well.
That's crazy.
We're going to talk later on a later podcast about each team, like throughout the offseason. But I'm just going to go have a quick prediction now. I think Miami might be one of the worst teams in the league next year, just because there's kind of turmoil with their star players right now, and you can never bank on Tua being healthy. But even disregarding that, even let's say they were all healthy. Oh, they didn't make the postseason last year. Why do they have more primetime games than Baltimore and Houston and Green Bay? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're a decent-sized market, but it's not like they're huge. And then, yeah, like you said, Atlanta made no sense at all. They're really banking on Michael Penix being really good, which hopefully he is, but there's been no indication that he will be because we haven't seen him enough. So for some reason, they get 5 primetime games that did not make the postseason last year. Really didn't do anything in the offseason. I don't recall them doing anything. It's not like they required a star, did anything that makes them screams they get more primetime games. And a couple of the Sunday night games too, I was disappointed in because they're really banking on some of these guys being stars. Like we said, week 1, Baltimore, Buffalo, that's going to be good. But then they follow it up with week 2 with Falcons and Vikings. 2 very unproven quarterbacks. I don't know if I like that for a Sunday night football matchup. That's not really one you're waiting all day for, unless you're a fan of those teams. And then, they have New England at Buffalo. That doesn't make sense to me because Drake May looks like he could be good, but he hasn't proven that he's going to be great, and he's going to Buffalo. If it was switched and it was like Buffalo at New England, I could say, okay, like I could make an argument for that. New England's a big market. Drake May's an exciting young quarterback, but that just seems like a slaughter to me. Week 5. And then just my final issue I had is that 3 teams that got 0 primetime games. There was the Titans, Saints, Browns. You can kind of argue the Browns did get 1 because they do play one of the foreign games. But to me, I feel like the Titans should have like a Thursday night game because they have the number 1 pick. And that you kind of want to see him play at least one time if you live outside the Nashville area and you don't want to buy you don't want to buy extra streaming services to watch the game. So, yeah, that's my final takes on the schedule. If you have anything else to share, feel free.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that the number 1 pick isn't going to get to be under the bright lights for
ever.
a game.
Yeah.
You would hope to at least get one. And it's not like Tennessee's really a bad team. They just didn't have a quarterback, and now they might actually have someone competent behind center that could win them some more games. And obviously, it was a tough season last year with Will Levis, but there were games that they should have won that Levis gave away. So
to me, the Titans, like a Titans Jaguars, would be a perfect Thursday night game because you're not going to see much of those teams this year.
It's a divisional game.
Thursday
nights usually are.
Travis Hunter's intriguing. I know people have made the meme that the Titans Jaguars is the most Thursday night game ever because it's 2 teams that no one cares about. But that's why I like Thursday games a lot because you see teams you don't get to see throughout the year.
Yeah, and the games last year between Tampa Bay and Atlanta were some of the best all year. So I think some of those really off the wall, divisional matchups that you don't usually get to see in primetime slots are really good. And I think that missed opportunity there with Tennessee. So obviously we'll be able to get into more about the teams and the divisions as we move forward. We'll have some cool segments for you guys in future episodes, but we'll move on to the NBA. But before we do that, I did want to let you guys know that if you are listening on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We're young, we're hungry, we're ready to get this thing going. So any help is appreciated. That's at KL Sports Huddle. That's on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, go ahead, give us a follow, give us a rating and a review. Anything helps. And if you can't sit through an hour, well, we were on Instagram as well at Huddle KL Sports. You can see a lot of our content on there in short snippets. And then we do post some breaking news onto our story. So let's talk about the NBA. We got through another round of the playoffs, and another year, another year without the same champion. It is a given now that the Celtics are out, and it's clear that there's a lot of parity across the league, and this is exactly what Adam Silver wanted. No dynasties, no super teams, and we're going to have a new champion, whether it's OKC or it's Minnesota or it's Indiana or it's New York. And, a lot of what's contributed to this is Silver's CBA. Under his reign, he's been able to limit the super teams since the KD Steph Curry era of Golden State basketball. But to me, I think it's more than just that. I really think you have to look at how these teams have been constructed, how the rosters have been constructed over these past few years, the championship teams. So 3 of the last 6 champions won their titles in the immediate aftermath of trading multiple first-round picks for a veteran. So if you look back, we've got the Lakers who got AD, the Bucks got Drew Holiday, and the Celtics also got Drew Holiday. Another team, the Nuggets, they actually traded a first-round pick and a player that they had recently used a first-round pick on, which was R.J. Hampton, to get Aaron Gordon. They didn't win with him immediately, but they did win in their first season with a healthy roster around him. The Raptors also traded for Kawhi Leonard. They didn't have to give up multiple picks for him, but that was only because he was an impending free agent. They paid for 1 year and then lost their star right afterward. He came in, got them a championship, and left. Now, all of this giving up draft capital for vets has come at a price because teams are getting old fast and roster depth definitely decreases once you give up all those potential young guys that would be on your roster. So with teams coming into the playoffs, obviously there's almost never a case that a team comes in 100%. There's always somebody who's hurt. And at this point, roster depth is more valuable than ever. That's why Indiana has gotten as far as they have these past couple of years, is because they've had so much depth. If you look back between 94 and 2018, there were only 3 seasons in which 5 All-Stars missed a game due to an injury. And that span, the number never got higher than 5. But since 2019, every postseason has featured at least 5 All-Stars missing a game. And that number got as high as 10 in 2021. So, this might be less about Adam Silver and enforcing more parity and more about the league and its the team's aggressive nature in roster building, which has pretty much become a staple of this era. So because the style of that roster building creates a number of viable championship caliber teams at any given time, but it also makes each of those teams more vulnerable to immediate, degradation pretty much.
Yeah, one other thing I'd like to point out about this is that actually a couple things. One is that I think gone are the days where you could say if you just plugged in prime LeBron and put him just on a bad team that they would win a title, or you could plug prime Michael Jordan and put him on the Wizards or Hornets and they could win the title. I say that because I think now with how much 3-point shooting's in the game, I think role players are just as important as star players now. Maybe even more important because there are so many 3-and-D players, and it doesn't matter how good you're playing if your role players are not doing their job and hitting threes like that. Like their assigned role is 3-and-D. They're not. You're not going to win. Like you could see that with the Nuggets. Like Jokic could not do much against the Thunder in Game 7. Jamal Murray did not have a good series. but that year they won the title. Like obviously Jokic was being Jokic, but guys like Jamal Murray were on fire. The other players on that, like KCP, was on fire, and just and you see that a lot nowadays. Obviously, the Durant, I think, I mean, you can blame the Warriors for that because I mean, like Steph Curry revolutionized the game, or showed that 3-point shooting is important. Um, Now so and then that was our last super team, obviously when they had Durant. But after he
Yeah.
left, yeah, it's just been it's going to be our seventh straight team without a not defending a title. It's not just that; none of those teams have even made it past the second round. Like none of those teams even made the conference finals the
Right.
next year. So I don't know. This is a really interesting topic because I don't know how this is going to play out through history, like currently and through history. Because you look at every era in basketball, like 50s was the Lakers, 60s
Yep.
obviously Celtics. They won like 11 out of 13 titles. 80s Magic and Bird. Lakers won several years. Celtics won 3 times in that decade. 90s clearly the MJ Bulls. Early 2000s the Lakers. Late 2000s more Spurs, and then 2010s was either LeBron or the Warriors. Notice I did not say the 70s, which there were no dynasties during that time, and that was also the least watched basketball in NBA history. Like that was when ratings were in decline. Like, oh no, what's going to happen? And
Right.
luckily, Larry and Magic showed up, and they saved the league. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen here. I
Well,
love
ratings are going down.
ratings are going down, but they've kind of they've gone down, but they've kind of steadied. I believe like they're not continuing to decrease. They're just kind of staying down,
Plateaued. Yeah.
plateaued at the bottom. But as a basketball fan, I enjoy it. I like unpredictability. But when we 20 years from now, when we look back at this era, are we going to like?
It's not going to be memorable
It's
because
not
we're
going
not
to
going to
be.
be able to look back at a really dominant team because there are no dominant
It's not going
teams.
to be memorable. I think certain players' legacies will be hurt. Like they won't be remembered for how good they actually were because they didn't win as many titles as LeBron or
Right.
Jordan or Kareem.
Like,
But
it,
but like I said, if you put those guys in this era right now, I'm not talking about 40-year-old LeBron, I'm talking about prime LeBron. I think they'd be in the same boat. It's just it's so dependent on 3-point shooting that if your role players are having an off night, it doesn't matter how many points you put up. You can't really carry your team if the other team's shooting well. So
yeah, and if we look back on this era in NBA history, we could be seeing someone like a Victor Wembanyama who maybe he dominates this era with maybe 3 titles and that's it. And we're gonna look back and be like, he wasn't as successful as these other great players. But if we actually you know do the research on it, he's going up against the best talent that the NBA's ever seen. The roster building the way it is, and the CBA that's been put into place in this league, that's really just all piled on to create this this theme that we've had in the NBA this far. And it's going to be really interesting to see, which team comes out with the title. But it won't be the Celtics as they go down in round 2 to the New York Knicks. And one of the biggest stories that came out of that was Jason Tatum going down with an Achilles injury in Game 4, and this is going to be a very interesting offseason for Boston, because what this could mean for the group is that the team could be vastly different the next time Tatum steps out on the court. He's going to be with a very different crew than he came off the court in Game 4 with. In that game, he did rupture his right Achilles tendon on what was a non-contact play. He knew it immediately, and he was pretty broken up about that. Just seeing him coming off the court there. His surgery was successful, but it will be a long road to recovery, and he most likely will miss all of next season. I really wouldn't try to bring him back too early. It's kind of reminiscent of KD's Achilles injury in the 19 finals that pretty much sidelined him for the entire following season. But if you look at the Celtics right now, their current payroll for next season is on track to come in around $225 million, which would mean a tax bill next year of almost 280 million. The combined potential 500 million total price tag, that would be a league record. With the new ownership incoming, along with we got aging vets on the team and Al Horford and Drew Holiday, that most likely will be gone, as well as Porzingis next year, because I didn't see much out of Kristaps during the playoffs. He didn't seem as much of a factor as we were hoping he would be. And there's a potential that they move off Brown as well. I'm just not sure what they will do with him. Tatum is locked in with his contract, but he will miss substantial time, which could ultimately accelerate this rebuild. Like I said, be a very different team when Tatum steps on the court. And if they don't have him next year, like I said, it could accelerate the rebuild, because if they're not doing well and he's not out there, they might as well clean house. But it's just crazy how quickly championship windows close in professional sports.
I would go retool rather than rebuild. So yeah, like you said, their money situation's hilariously awful right now. Yeah, they're 73 million above the cap going into next year. Horford and Cornette are your free agents, and so I would be very shocked if either of those guys are back. Cornette actually did pretty well. Like he's probably gonna get a good contract from somewhere, because I thought he played decently. Porzingis had some sort of illness that I don't think was reported on very well, because it seemed to clearly affect him at some points. And like, I don't know. Hopefully he wasn't playing 100%, because if he was, then yeah, he may have hurt his chances at getting another deal somewhere, a good deal somewhere. But if I was Boston, I would consider next year a retool year, because as long as you have Tatum, you can't call it a rebuild, because rebuild is where you get rid of everybody. So this could be like a Spurs year where they had Robinson and then he went down and then they tanked and got Duncan. But I think they'll still have Brown, because Brown's contract is he's getting paid. He might be the highest paid player in the league. Maybe he signed that really big contract. So yeah, to me, to clear up salary cap, Porzingis needs to go. I would say Holiday's probably gone, and you could probably get a decent package for him trade wise, because a veteran guard that can play defense.
Multiple championships.
Several teams are going to go after that. Derek White's an interesting one. I feel like he's really valuable to the Celtics, and I feel like if they can keep him, they should. But yeah, they're ceiling next year without Tatum and with just Brown and possibly White running it, and maybe Pritchard if he's still around. It's like a lower seed playoff team, which I don't know if that's what the Celtics want to do. But yeah, nowhere near a contender or anything like that. So yeah, to me, you just get new guys in there, have them gel for a year, whatever the results are, you just roll with, and then just add Tatum to that mix the following year, and hopefully fully recovers from that injury, and you're right back into the top of the East again.
I wonder if they'll change up their philosophy, if Missoula will try to do some different things, because we talked about it before with the 3-point shooting that was just horrendous in a couple of those games that really put them behind the 8 ball.
That could almost be like next year could just fully be an experimental year.
Right.
Get new guys, drum the other, try new things, because you're not, like I said, you're not going to contend for a title, but you still got guys. This should be it will be your supporting cast when your best player comes back. Yeah, just roll with it. Try new things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and hopefully in 2 years you're hoisting the trophy again.
Well, let's talk about the teams that did move on. We got the Knicks and Pacers. Let's stay in the Eastern Conference. This Knicks team, man, they've been a bit of a team of destiny. They've outworked both of their opponents up to this point, but now they're going to be going up against maybe the deepest team next to OKC in this playoff. I mean, the Pacers can go 3, 4, 5 deep on their bench, and it's pretty interesting to look at this matchup, because the Knicks have multiple guys who are averaging over 40 minutes a game. It's going to be pretty taxing, and the Pacers don't have anyone on their roster averaging more than 35 minutes per game. So the Knicks have done great, and they've defied the odds. All the guys who betting against them, they've been able to prove wrong. Do the Pacers finally make it to the finals, or is it going to be the next year? I mean, this is a fascinating series to me because this is a series where you really are worried about Towns and who he's going to guard and how the Pacers are going to be able to exploit that. Um, though the Knicks have been a much better offensive team this year, and that's exactly why they got Towns. So it's kind of that give and take of what you want. But you know, where? Let me just ask you, where do you see this series going?
So yeah, Miles Turner's going to have a huge series for the Pacers, exploiting Towns. Obviously, they do have Mitchell Robinson, who doesn't really provide much offense, but he's a big guy who can play defense and rebound. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much playing time that he splits with Towns or uh, Bridges, whoever is playing big. So obviously, these two teams met last year in the postseason. The Knicks especially, are much healthier than last year, and I would say both teams are a lot better than last year as well. People are saying, "Oh yeah, the Pacers only won because the Knicks were injured," and so of course the Knicks are going to win this series because the Knicks aren't injured anymore. Well,
And a lot of that same narrative is following them into this playoff as
yes,
well.
but I do. The Pacers are much better this year than they were last year.
I agree.
Plus they have experience. So yes, several Knicks guys play lots of minutes. The Pacers, if you watch the Bucks and the Cavs series, the Pacers are so deep, and you could just tell they just wear teams down. That's why they came back in Game 2 against the Cavs. That's why in Game 5, when the Cavs got to the big lead, you knew that this game's nowhere near over. And sure enough, by the third quarter, you saw some of the sloppiest offense you'll ever see in an NBA game displayed by the Cavs. Just I think fatigue and just not just the Pacers are so tiring to guard that it's hard to figure them out. Now you might think, okay, the Pacers can do that against the Knicks, and they kind of did that last year. But like I said, the Knicks were hurt, so they were down a lot of guys, so it was easier to wear them down. Now they still don't play a lot of guys, but you could see a guy like Towns starting to wear down by the end of the series if this goes long, just from the Pacers' fast, smart offense. But one guy that the Knicks have this year that they don't have last year is Mikal Bridges, and he is arguably the best conditioned player in the NBA. Like he plays every game, he plays so many minutes every game, um, and he's just a great all around player. So I think he could bring. He won't go down without a fight if like the Knicks start to wear down throughout the series. Um, it's going to be rocking environments in both arenas. We talked about last week that the Knicks, for some reason, had bad home court advantage, that they were losing all their home games. They won 2 in a row. So Madison Square Garden's back to being a good home court advantage. But the Pacers won Game 7 there last year. So the Pacers won't be intimidated by it. Fascinating series. If I have to go one way, I mean, I doubted the Pacers against the Bucks a few weeks ago, but I did say the winner of that series would beat the Cavs, so I did call that. But I thought it was going to be the Bucks. So I'm debating if I want to doubt the Pacers again, so they could prove me wrong because I am a Pacers fan. But I'm just going to go right with the Pacers. I think the Pacers get it done in 6 games. It's tempting to say 7, but I think if Game 7 would be at Madison Square Garden, and Game 6 would
Right.
be
You
at
want to get
Cambridge.
that done in 6.
I think they get it done in 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you are the Pacers, you want this over quickly because as much as the Knicks players play each game plus 40 minutes, once you start getting later and later into the series, you start to um, the Knicks and their fans start to get a lot of hope because they're the ultimate underdog team that has continued to have success in this tournament. But I don't really have much on OKC Minnesota. I have no idea where that series is going to go. Obviously, OKC is very deep, but they're also really young. And then I know the Timberwolves have been here before in the Eastern Conference Finals and came up short. So there is experience on this team, and it's relatively the same roster outside of the Towns Randall swap. But Randall's been a revelation, And I think if he continues to play really well and Ant does what Ant is supposed to do, it could get a little hairy for the 1 seed in the West.
Yeah, the Thunder definitely got the monkey off their back by winning against Denver, because if they would have lost that series, there would have been some serious questions about why the number one overall seed 2 years in a row couldn't get out of the second round. So, but they got that pressure off them now. Now you could argue, okay, they're pressure free. They're in the conference finals. That's what a 1 seed's supposed to do. Now the Timberwolves have something to play for because, like you said, they lost last year in the conference finals to a team that I felt like going into that series with Dallas, it was about 50-50, but they just really underperformed. Luka took over, and I think that game went only 5. So, to me, the Thunder are deep. They are just coming off a 7-game series. The Timberwolves have more rest. Um, Game one's been interesting. Game one's been interesting because it's I think it's the team that's had the least amount of rest in last series. All of them won game one. It was fascinating. So I don't know if that'll continue over into the conference finals, but I think the Timberwolves are deeper. They're a lot deeper than the Nuggets are, because the Nuggets had Jokic and role players who, if they didn't step up, there wasn't much. They didn't have a chance. And I think the Timberwolves are deeper. They've Edwards, Gobert's great inside, and obviously Julius Randle's been phenomenal this postseason. And you got guys like Naz Reid off the bench who can hit threes. I'm going to go it's going to be another 6-game series. I'm going to take the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves will also get it done at home in game 6 over the Thunder.
I like it. I like it. A couple of small market teams you have going to the finals. We got Minnesota, Indiana. That'd be honestly really cool. I think no matter what finals we get, it's going to be good. I think we've got a good group of 4 teams that all have a good small guard. I know Edwards is I see like 6'4", 6'5", but they're all led by a guard. It's Shea, it's Ant, it's Halliburton, and it's Brunson. So I think it's really cool that we get that because as ball handlers, they get most of the attention. So I think it's cool that they're the best players on their team and they get to lead them to this point. But we'll get more commentary on these series as we move forward. But right now, I want to talk about what went down at the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow this past weekend. It was kind of a fascinating tournament to begin with. I know after the opening round, we were texting back and forth like, where's all the stars? Where's Scheffler? Where's Rory? It looked like the Barracuda Championship out there. A lot of guys that you don't usually see at the top of the leaderboard, but that quickly changed. We had some guys really make some moves on cut day, most notably Max Homa. He didn't end up having a great tournament once rounds 3 and 4 went underway, but round 2 he finished with a 7 under to make the cut and be right there in the top 5 after day 2. So really impressed with how he's been able to turn things around and be able to at least make cuts now. But then throughout the whole tournament, we kind of saw Scheffler just lurking. And after round 1, there was a lot of commentary about the group of Scheffler and Schauffele and Rory were just shit in the bed after round 1. Now, I would say that about Rory and Xander, but Scheffler was 2 under. So I think that's kind of, the narrative of how much of a, how much we expect out of Scottie in these tournaments, is we just expect him to dominate every round. But he kept lurking. After round 2, he was right there. And then round 3, he took over. On moving day, he got back on top. He shot a 65, and with that, he had an incredible drive into the green at 14. I thought the 14th hole was my favorite hole to watch because it was that drivable par 4. He ended up getting it within less than 3 feet. It was easily sunk an eagle putt, and that was a huge turning point for him as well, as he brought a lot of momentum with him going into the Green Mile. And then finally, final round, he slipped up a little bit. At one point, it got close. Rahm was right there, but he quickly got his 5-shot lead back and ended up taking his 3rd major title and his 2nd of the career Grand Slam. So I'm interested to see to hear what you thought about the weekend and what transpired there.
So on Saturday, so the Green Mile, for anyone who didn't watch, holes 16, 17, and 18 I believe they did play out to be the three hardest holes on the course, and no, throughout history they have been the three hardest holes on the course. Um, so on Saturday, in the last five holes, Scheffler, so that includes all three of the Green Mile holes, in order, Scheffler finished with eagle, birdie, par, birdie, birdie. And that just changed the whole tournament because it looked like going. He played well on Saturday, but he wasn't great until those last five holes. So
Yeah,
we're looking like, okay, he's going to the Green Mile. If you escape with parring those three, that's a win. And it
right.
looks like we're going to have a fascinating Sunday because there's going to be so many guys tied for first and second or within striking distance. But no, he absolutely murdered those last five holes, including birdieing 17 and 18. Um, and yeah, he pretty much put it out of reach. I know John Rahm had a great tournament. I'm glad to see him back in the mix.
Yes.
He was tied. He tied Scheffler at one point when Scheffler was kind of playing iffy, and
Yeah.
Rahm hit a couple of good putts. But ultimately, Scheffler prevailed. Made a couple birdies, and then people will fault Rahm for he hit it in the water on 17 and played well on 18, but the 17 one didn't bother me at all because at that point he had to be aggressive. Like he went for the hole, which I don't blame him at all. Like it cost him some money because he could have easily finished outright second with how he'd been playing. But
Yeah.
I mean, Rahm's a two-time major winner, so he was trying to find a way to win. So I don't blame him for that. But yeah, those last three holes they murdered some good scores. Saturday, Bryson was having a good day until he came to those until he came to the Green Mile. I believe he bogeyed 16, or either bogeyed 16 or 18, one of those. But he hit it in the water on 17, and he ended up double bogeying that, and that kind of put him out of contention to win. He did finish tied for second, which is he's fascinating because you watch him play. You're like his approach shots are still awful. Like they did not improve. He hardly. I don't even know if he improved at all from this disastrous Sunday on Masters with his approach shots. And I thought his putting was worse too. His putting was definitely worse on Sunday on the PGA Championship Sunday that was Masters Sunday. When you look at the leaderboard, he finished tied for second. It just he's a guy. I think he's like Scheffler, where he'll always be there. Like you expect better. Like you're watching him play, he's like he should be playing a lot better. But you look at the leaderboard, oh, he's tied for second. So his his resume on majors lately has just been insane. All these top 10 and top 5 finishes. Um, yeah, 3 live guys made the top 10. Like we said, Rahm deserved to be in the top 10. I'm glad he still made it because he played excellent, except those last couple holes where he tried to do too much. But Joaquin Niemann finally made a top 10. I know that's been against. I know people have said, when's he going to take the next step? Which you could say he did, but
Yeah.
he kind of backdoored in that top 10 with some of the guys kind of fell off at the end. And he had a good day Sunday, but not many people watched it because he was earlier in the day. But congratulations to him. But yeah, that Thursday leaderboard, man, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Jonathan Vegas, Ryan Gerard, and Cam Davis. Yeah, no one really expected that. And
Yeah. You
credit to
knew.
Vegas. He finished. I believe he finished tied for. Let's see. I think he was tied for fifth. Yeah, he finished tied for fifth.
Fifth.
So people said, "Oh, he's not even going to make the. He's not even going to make the top 20 when it's all said and done." But he I mean, obviously he didn't play anywhere near as well as he did on Thursday when he
Yeah.
shot that -8. But I mean, credit to him. He still made a lot of money, and not many people expected him to even make the cut. So
Right. And it was his best, first 2 rounds that he'd ever had on tour. And to do that at a major championship is pretty special. So I guess the question now is, since Scottie got the PGA Championship, will he be able to carry the success into the next 2 majors, the U.S. Open and the Open? If you look back at his previous results in these 2 championships, he was tied for 41st in last year's U.S. Open. He has gotten a third place finish and a tied for second. In the past 3 years, that's kind of what it's looked like for him at U.S. Opens. For the Open, I would say it's looked a little worse because he's not gotten a better finish than tied for seventh, which he did last year. Um, this year they're at one of the toughest courses for the U.S. Open, Oakmont, and I just wonder if he's going to be able to bring that same success and possibly complete the Grand Slam this year. I think that's going to be the talk going forward.
Yeah, I mean, people were having this conversation about Rory early after he won the Masters, so it's such a weird conversation to have because so many things can happen. Um, but he compared to Rory though, I mean, Scottie did finish top five at the Masters, so it's not like he underperformed at the
Yeah.
Masters. Rory barely made the cut. It came down to the final hole on Friday. He just couldn't double bogey it, which was surprisingly difficult for a lot of players. But he ended up bogeying, so he did make the cut. But yeah, he had a disappointing weekend. But Oakmont's a different breed.
And with his lack of success, it tied for 41st at Pinehurst last year, and that's a really tough course.
Yeah.
And you could argue Oakmont is worse. So it'll be very interesting to see if Scotty's gonna be able to bring it come U.S. Open. That's always a fun one because of how difficult it is. But he has been the world number one for 140 weeks, so that's a pretty impressive stat line there, and it's the most. You want to guess the most since who?
Wait, repeat that.
He's had the most weeks at number one as the world number one since who?
I would guess Mr. Tiger Woods.
That's true. And how many weeks did he have? How about 683
Okay,
weeks?
yeah. So
Well, Scotty's still got a young career right now, but it'll be interesting to see how long he can keep that going.
mhm.
But moving on to Major League Baseball, we had some interesting news come out of the commissioner's office as Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, among others, were removed from MLB's banned list and are now Hall of Fame eligible. Um, both players here, legacies were stained by gambling. We know this. They're eligible now to make it into the Hall of Fame, which was thought to never be a thing because it was a permanent ban, not a lifetime ban, which is now pretty much what it's become. Rose was banned in 1989 following an MLB investigation that determined that he had bet on games while managing for the Cincinnati Reds. Jackson, on the other hand, was part of the Chicago White Sox team that had 7 other guys who were also banned from playing professional baseball in 1921 for fixing the 1919 World Series, otherwise known as the Black Sox scandal. Um, so both players, the earliest they could be enshrined is 2028. The question is, was this the right move? And is Rob Manfred building on a lasting legacy, considering he's the one that's changed the way baseball is doing things now with the pitch clock and getting rid of the shifts and making the bases bigger and bringing more movement. And now he's allowing a couple guys that have been, you know, cheered for to make it in. Now they have a chance to get in. If you look at Shoeless Joe Jackson, he's kind of looked more fondly on because it could be argued that it was not his fault. He was not at fault.
May have even like participated against his own will, like
Right.
or didn't even know
Right.
about it that he was participating in it.
Exactly, because in the 1919 World Series, he hit 375. He had 12 hits, no errors, and he had the one home run in that series because it was the dead ball era.
Well, even if he was rigging it, he should make the Hall of Fame because he hit it so he hit it so well by playing that well that I mean honestly you got to respect him and just put him in if he's able to rig. But
I mean the only argument that could go against it is that maybe there was an agreement that all the other players would suck, but they would have one guy play really well
yeah,
to avoid suspicion. So he could also have known about it and then played just like he would have to avoid suspicion from the rest of the guys. So, but in any case, Rose, on the other hand, has been probably the most popular player outside of the group of guys from the steroid era, pushed by fans to get into the Hall of Fame. Um, you know, he is Major League Baseball's career leader in hits with 4,256 games played, at bats, and even singles. He often, I know he often complained that the ban prevented him from working with young hitters in minor league ballparks. This wasn't just that he couldn't coach or be in the front office. He couldn't even work with guys in the off season in these ballparks. But my opinion on this, I've kind of gone back and forth with this, but I've come to the conclusion that museums exist to tell stories about history, and history is a lot of times messy. This should apply to sports as well. I think it's time to just move on and be done with the animosity towards these players, because MLB just needs to stop being so precious with their sport and recognize that all the legends that have shaped the history of the game, you know, despite what they've done off the field or even on the field, the Hall of Fame isn't about who the best humanitarians are. We have a Roberto Clemente award for that. It's about the play on the field, really. I'm interested to hear what your take is on this.
I don't really know if I have a take, because I don't expect either one of them to get into the Hall of Fame still. Because if you think about it, I mean, Barry Bonds and Clemens had a chance in 2022, and they didn't even get close to the 12 votes that they needed to make it.
Do you think the guys that are voting, the committee that's voting on this, do you think they look at the gambling side as less of an indictment than the steroids?
I think they're going to look at it the same way. Like because they just don't want the questions of, okay, if you let these guys in, why don't we let these guys in? I mean, let's just play it fair for everybody for letting gambling in. I don't know what they view. I just don't know. Like, is this, now that they're eligible, is it going to convince them to get in? I don't believe so. I'm for, and I'm kind of in that same boat. I'm for all or nothing. Just let them all in, or let none of them in, because
exactly
when it comes down to picking and choosing which scandal's worse, that's not
right.
fun.
Yeah. And you could even vote him in, and then on his plaque or in his exhibit for being having the most hits, you could write a little paragraph so that people can read it as they pass by, talking about his gambling. I mean, it's something that should follow him into the Hall of Fame, but I think he should be in the Hall of Fame for his play on the field. But yeah, the gambling aspect of it all is tough, because he not only could have been betting against his team to win games and making decisions to pull guys or make awful looking lineups. You never know. But also on the flip side, if he was betting for his team, he could be risking injury he could have been risking injuries for some of his players by leaving them out there, pitching guys multiple days in a row because he really needed to get a win on his bet. So that does, I think, really, really hurt him. But I also think there's a lot of old guys on these committees that probably watched him play and have always maybe wanted him in. That would be the only way I think that he would find a path into it. But I mean, what do you think of them even just allowing them, like getting them off the ban list? It was supposed to be a permanent ban, and it's a lifetime ban now.
I mean, I think right move. I mean, he died, unfortunately, but
yeah,
he can't do any, like, did Manfred say something? He can't do much. He can't do anything else to hurt the game anymore because he's no longer with us. So.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun discussion to have about, the steroid guys, the gambling guys, all the ones that could be or should be in the Hall of Fame. We'll ultimately see here in a couple of years if he gets voted in. But that'll pretty much do it for us here on the KNL Sports Huddle. We got through a lot. We did it in probably record time, honestly. But yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward to more playoff games, more regular season baseball games as we trudge through the regular season, and looking forward to the U.S. Open. But that'll be it for us here. I'm Cage Kiplinger. That's Logan Hubert, and we will see you all next week.